you guys.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
A little Hunt's hot seat. Right?
Yeah.
The first up on the hot seat here, Jimbo Fisher. I don't think there's anybody in America who's got a bigger spotlight on him right now than Jimbo Fisher. Chris, what do you think about that?
This guy, and I kind of think he's a stooge personally, but this guy got paid a fuck ton of money to go to A&M from Florida State, right? We all know that. Guy makes over like $9 million a year. Has done really nothing with A&M in his time there, Christian. I'm going to be a little hard here and be a hater. Do I think it's the hot seat for him, though? No, I don't. You know why? Because if they fire him after this year, say he goes, Jesus Christ, what'd they go last year? They didn't even make a bowl game.
5-7.
Yeah. They have to pay him out like $77 million. He's got a really crazy contract where, like, the amount of money they invested in this guy, to me, was unreal. We all know he won the national title, Christian, at Florida State with the most guys in prison on that team or felonies I've ever seen in that 2013 Florida State team. My God.
We're just catching up to him, by the way.
Yeah, well, that's a topic for maybe today or another day. Ain't that the truth? That Florida State team, I'm telling you, he won one national title, and they were great. That Florida State team was awesome with Jameis Winston and all those guys. I'm not taking it away. I don't think Jimbo Fisher is a terrible coach, but I don't know if he was worth the money. And I'll be honest with you, that's why I don't think A&M can fire him right now. Like the amount of money they invested, A&M's one of those programs like a Nebraska. They do have a lot of money. They got a lot of boosters, a lot of money coming from those oil fields. They got a lot of money over there, so they can afford to pay people. But my thing is with Jimbo, they got to get it together. Yeah. This is the SEC over here. When A&M moved over there, I thought, boy, you guys are in a different world now. You know what I mean? Coming from the Big 12, Christian, you know this. They haven't been relevant. They really haven't. I think if I'm not mistaken here, his lifetime win-loss record at A&M is like 39-21. If I'm not mistaken, his Florida State record is like 83-23 or something like that. Like if that don't tell you the difference in conferences, I don't know what does, coming from like the ACC over the SEC and the type of talent and the defenses and just great coaches over in the SEC as well. So I just don't. I guess to answer this question, I don't see how they can fire him. Who are you going to go get on that? If you get rid of Jimbo, who are you going to go get while you pay him his $80 million? Like I'm just saying, I think money comes down to this. I don't think that. I don't know. I haven't really dug real deep in A&M's schedule this year, Christian. But if he has a worse year than he did last year, Jesus Christ! Like I think next year then would be his absolute hot seat. That's just my take on this. I'm actually very interested to hear the chats and Christians and your guys' on this one.
Well, here's the way I look at it, dude. This is his seat is scorching right now after that 5-7 year last year. It doesn't help either that Texas and Oklahoma are coming to the same motherfucking conference next year.
I agree.
It does not help because they're coming over. And what if Texas or Oklahoma ends up coming in and having instant success, right? I mean,
and I think one of those two will have some success over in the SEC. I really do personally. I think it's going to be Texas probably more than it is Oklahoma, but go ahead.
Here's the other side of it too, Chris, right? It's not for lack of talent, because over the last 4 years, the Aggies have actually averaged the 8th best recruiting class in that span.
Did he have the number 1 recruiting class last year?
He not only did he have the number 1 recruiting class, but he arguably had the greatest recruiting class of all time. Now, I've always said this, and I said this last year when a lot of those kids were going to play, and I said, look, it takes time, especially in this conference, if you're going to put a bunch of 4- and 5-star athletes on the field, and we're going to learn that this year with Bama, but we'll talk about that here in a bit. You can have the most talented roster, but if they're all freshmen, true freshmen that just got done going to prom, and you're coming into the SEC, you're probably going to struggle, right? Now, if you can keep most of them, which he lost also a shit ton of people in the transfer portal this year too, but if you can keep most of them, you've got a good shot to be consistently successful, I think, and that's good. But here's the thing. The reason they brought Jimbo in was to replace Kevin Sumlin. They wanted to get past Bama and start competing for natties, right? I mean, that's essentially why they brought him in over Kevin Sumlin. Because Kevin Sumlin did a good job there.
He did.
He was a bad coach.
No.
He just started to kind of, fade away down the stretch. But the SEC West is probably one of the most, and they're doing away with divisions, but the SEC West throughout this time has been one of the most jam-packed, crowded, hardest divisions to win in all of college football.
I would say it's the hardest division to win. Other than...
But
go ahead, sorry.
You're exactly right. It's the hardest division to win because you've got Bama, Ole Miss, Tennessee. I mean, you've got, well, maybe not Tennessee's in that side, but you know what I'm saying? You've got a shit ton of people over in that side.
Yeah,
LSU that just make it extremely hard year in and year out to get through them. The way I look at this, Chris, very simply is, with all that talent, if I could tell you this right now, all that talent, Jimbo hasn't been able to get 10 wins since he's got to Texas A&M. Can you believe that?
You touched on it, and this is my take here on this with this. I'm glad you brought that up, Christian. I appreciate that. Here's my thing. Is this just an outlier year last year for him? Was it an outlier year, right? We see coaches do that, everyone, good coaches, and I think you would agree Jimbo Fisher is not a scrub for a coach. I think he's kind of a stooge as far as his personality goes at times in media. But was it just an outlier last year? Was it a down year? If I'm not mistaken, he had kind of a year like that at Florida State back in the day too, I think. Something like that, maybe where he didn't make a bowl game or they won 6 games or Jesus Christ, no, I'm completely wrong. That's impressive. Here's my thing, though. He did move over to the SEC, and that was where I was getting at with this, is that the SEC is a hell of a lot tougher. I mean, let's be honest. That West Side's brutal. It's almost like the Big Ten West, right? Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. Last few years, like Penn State, if they were on the other fucking side, man, they're probably thinking that too. Hell, we'd beat the hell out of Wisconsin. We'd beat the hell out of Iowa every year. We'd beat the hell out of Nebraska, right? So that's where I think some of this is the conference. And some of it is, I don't know. I can't figure this guy out. Is it a one-year wonder that he won it at Florida State, Christian? Was it just one of those gifted years where you get it done? Like was he too overrated as a head coach? I guess is my question.
No, I think honestly what it was is he had really good offensive line play. He had excellent
that team
receivers.
Was loaded.
Yeah, loaded. But primarily he had a phenomenal quarterback in Jameis Winston, right? That's part of it that could extend plays and make things happen. And then after that, after Jameis left, I mean, I just don't think the quarterbacks they had after that they were talented, but they just never were able to really put it all together or stay healthy. And that really cost him and that hurt him. And so, at A&M, I mean, he had Kellen Mond and now they've cycled in and out of 4- and 5-star quarterbacks that are perennial all-stars or whatever have you, but they're not even on the roster. I mean, to me, this is what it ultimately comes down to, though. The quarterback this year. Who's going to be the quarterback? I mean, it looks like Connor Weigman, right?
Yeah.
But Max Johnson's battling it out too. I mean, Weigman's a former 5-star, quarterback, and he was a true freshman last year. But he threw, he threw 8 touchdowns and no interceptions, but he struggled with keeping the offense going, right? And getting in that rhythm. Max Johnson, on the other hand, has been around college football for a while. Here's a hot take for you, Chris, inside of this hot seat segment. I could see Max Johnson having a Stetson Bennett / Max Dugan-like year this year.
Really?
Right? Where maybe Weigman starts the season off as the starter, he wins the job. Maybe he doesn't stay healthy in the beginning of the season. I don't want to wish that on him, or doesn't play well, right? And then out of nowhere, Max Johnson comes out and leads the Aggies to greatness. I could see it. I'm just saying, man, I could definitely see it. What greatness is, I don't know. Maybe it's an upset win over Alabama. Maybe it's, maybe it happens early in the year and he gets them on this improbable run and they make it all the way to the SEC championship. You never know. And they're talented enough on that roster to surprise the shit out of everybody.
That's what this comes down to, though, to me, with Jimbo. And that's where I have a question mark about. I think that he's a good coach. He's a damn good recruiter. He's a tremendous recruiter. That's part of. It's probably 80% or 70% of coaching. I think most people with half a fucking brain would agree with that in the college landscape nowadays. But can he coach these guys? And that's what's surprising. I don't know. I think this is a very interesting year for A&M. If they have another down year, and I mean down is like not winning a bowl game, I I would assume they say, hey, I mean, he's already been there for 5 years. I know it's the SEC. I don't think they have that like crazy good year this year just with their schedule. And I don't know, man. If I'm A&M right now, I am worried. You got a ton of talent on your roster. You don't get it done for the second year in a row. And what I mean by not getting it done is win 8 or 9 games, especially in the SEC. That's not a bad year if you get 9 wins. Let's be honest.
No.
I don't know, man. I think that the seat is hot. I agree. I think they're kind of fucked though, because it's like, well, I don't want to pay this guy $77 million either.
Yeah,
maybe it ain't a big deal. Maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of schools can't afford that.
Well, you got to think about it from this standpoint. I mean, Texas A&M over the last probably decade, I would say, has probably been the hottest draw in the state of Texas. I mean,
100%.
TCU last year had a good run, but they've been consistently. TCU has money, and let me tell you right now, if they want Jimbo gone, they'll get him out of there. They'll figure out a way to do it. They may break it down and pay him in loan installments, or whatever have you, right? Pay him $7 million a year for the next 10 years. They'll figure out a way to get him gone. I think it comes down to this, Chris. Anything less than 7 wins this year, I think he's out.
Yeah, I mean, I could see if less than 7 wins, Christian, yeah. With a lot of it then, if that is the case, say that happens, right? Yeah. We're speaking hypothetically here, but like if it does happen, does all that talent leave then? If it does stay, my God, you could plug and play any coach in there at that point. You know what I mean? I mean, that roster is fucking loaded. I mean, with 5 stars and 4 stars all over the place. I mean, when you have like arguably the greatest recruiting class ever last year, and you win 5 freaking games, I mean that's tough. I mean, those kids are got to be thinking after this year, well, shit, you know, this Jimbo guy can't coach. You know what I mean? He can recruit whatever they sold him on. Maybe the NIL money, we could figure in a bunch of different scenarios here, Christian. But like, yeah, you're right. I mean, if he doesn't, you're probably right. I mean, God, that's a lot of money to me to pay a guy who won 1 national title on a team that had a lot of problems outside of football. You know, his record. I never. I'll be honest with you, Christian. Maybe this is a different take. I can't believe he ever left Florida State to begin with. He was really good there. They were actually prominent for the first time in 15 years. You know, when they won that title.
Well, he was coming off in 2017. I think he saw the writing on the wall. He went 5-6.
Yeah, I take that back. That's right. That was the one outlier year I was talking about, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, so I think he kind of saw the writing on the wall. I just, you know, and I'm not saying they couldn't have rebounded from it. I mean, Jimbo's a hell of a recruiter, right? But I just think that, man, it was a tough thing. A&M was offering him stupid money. I think you got to go for it. You got to do it. But yeah, man, I mean, this is going to be an interesting thing to see this year. I'm actually really interested to see how A&M plays this year, right? They're kind of that wild card team. I feel like that they could have a really good year. They could make it past Bama and hell, maybe even surprise all of us and beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. They've got that talented of a roster, I feel as if.
It's either, I think one or two things happens. Either that happens or they flop again. You know what I mean? Like I don't think there's really any in between here. And I don't think I don't know a ton of A&M people, but I would assume their fan base is probably like, holy fuck, we're paying. The only reason why I say this is because we paid Scott Frost a lot of money, right? And I know what that feels like. If you're going to give me 4 or 5 fucking wins a season, if Scott never even got us 5, get this fucking clown out of here. You know what I mean? Like that's. Yeah. I think A&M's thinking the same thing. They know they're in the SEC. They understand that conference is tough, but they also made the choice to go over there and compete. And I think when they did go over there, when A&M, if you guys don't remember, when A&M went over there, A&M was the hottest team in Texas by far. By far. They own the recruiting down there. If anybody knows about anything about college football, Texas is a hotbed for talent, obviously. And they were getting pretty much everybody and anybody they wanted.
Yeah.
So it didn't play out the way they thought it was going to. Now they're like, well, fuck, we're paying this guy a boatload of money, and we got a 5-win season, no bowl game, no nothing to hang your hat on. They're in panic mode. I get it. If I were an A&M fan, hell, I'm not even an A&M fan, but I get it as an A&M just watching A&M. I'm like, Jesus, these guys should be a hell of a lot better, Christian.
You know, coronary artery.
Yeah.
Talk about a heart attack team, man.